to talk for just a few minutes about the lost tools of writing. We're going to be using this writing program in our Logic 2 composition class, and we also will be offering it as our English 1 rhetoric composition class. And so I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about this because lost tools of writing is very, very different than some other composition programs you might have been using. Right now, Alethea uses IEW quite a bit for composition, and we love IEW. And lost tools of writing, if you're coming from IEW into lost tools of writing, you might be a little bit shocked by the difference. And so I just wanted to explain it for a minute because they're both really good composition programs as far as the goals that they have, but they are very different programs in the goals that they have and the way that they work those goals out. So for lost tools of writing, the goal is to get students to write persuasive essays that are well thought out. And so it uses a very basic rudimentary form as far as the writing goes, because they're very, very much focused on the thinking before the writing, and they want students to be able to kind of work in this formula, which would sound very familiar to IEW if you've done that, because they also have a formula. It's just that this one is more rudimentary, I guess I would say, in the sense because there's so much more thinking going on before you write, and they want the students to kind of just know how to plug that in to follow this form. And so I say that, and you might be thinking, well, what do you mean? Like very basic. And so if I could just read for you quickly a sample essay, the very first essay that your student will write in the book, it's only this long, so you can see it's quite, essay is a bit loose of a term, but let me read this for you. Edmund should not have followed the White Witch for 3 reasons. Edmund's sister Lucy warned him that the White Witch was evil. He should have seen that the White Witch was evil, and he acted in secret. The first reason Edmund should not have followed the White Witch is that his sister Lucy warned him that the White Witch was evil. The second reason Edmund should not have followed the White Witch is that he should have seen that the White Witch was evil. The third reason Edmund should not have followed the White Witch is that he acted in secret. Edmund should not have followed the White Witch because his sister Lucy warned him that the White Witch was evil. He should have seen that the White Witch was evil, and he acted in secret. So, your student wrote that and handed that to you. You might be thinking, well, you didn't do anything. You just repeated yourself 3 times. And as you go through this program, you'll see that is not at all what happened. But I'm warning you with this video just in case it's your first time. That's not where the essays end. Your student is going to progress through 9 essays that will get increasingly longer in length and in skill and in discipline. And to the end, when they get to the 9th essay. But like I said, Lost Tools of Writing is trying to teach them to think persuasively so that they can in turn write persuasively. And they call it rudimentary essay for the first one. So what they have basically is we have an issue that we talk about, a should question. And the sample was using from The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, looking at Edmund and following the White Witch, if you're familiar with that story. But it really can be used on anything. You can use a historical thing. You can use a current events issue. In fact, the freshman class, the 9th graders, the English 1 for rhetoric, are going to be looking at current events. In Logic 2, we're going to have, I believe, 5 essays written on literature, just much like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and then actually I think there's 6, and then a couple that are one's historical and one's current events. But basically you have this issue. Should something have happened? And we're trying to teach the students to think it through on all the sides. And so we introduce them in the very first lesson to the Annie chart. And this is going to be a stretch for your students. It's going to teach them discipline and diligence. And I say that from experience, having a student that went through this and having to teach through this. Because the Annie chart is really kind of brainstorming on paper. And whenever somebody tells us that we have to produce so much of something, immediately we're like, I don't need that, right? And so when we would ask something very basic, like, should Edmund have followed the White Witch? That would be our issue here. And then we would be looking at, the affirmative, reasons he should have, and the negative, reasons he shouldn't have, and things that are just interesting, weather, scenes, times, that kinds of thing. And sometimes when we research more, we can fit them into one of these 2 from the interesting. But the reason I say it's a challenge is because if your student knows right away this answer to the should question, they're like, I know what he should or shouldn't have done. It's very painful to have to go through and list. Eventually they're going to get 25 to 30 in each column is the goal. And as a parent, of course, you can change that, but I would encourage you to really think about that, because the pain brings about the discipline. But it's very painful to have to do that for something that you don't agree with. Let's say you're doing a current events one, and it's maybe gun control, and your student is like, I know that I'm not for that, this kind of gun control. To really sit down and think, why might somebody be for it, can be difficult. It's nothing natural, but yet to go through and to list reasons. And I remember having a child that was like almost painful for them to have to write something for, because they just it went against my soul. I'm so against this. But it's important to think through both sides of the issue. Now, it might be something that your student doesn't feel strongly about, and they're going to look at it and say, what do I have the most for? And that's the side I'm going to go for. But if they already know, it's just that discipline of having to put both. And that will come up later, not in essay 1, but as they go through, they do an Annie chart for every essay. When you see what the other side thinks, that helps you with refutation, which they will talk about when you talk about what other people would say and how you respond, what your response to that is. And so this is really teaching students to think persuasively. They use the 5 canons of rhetoric, which we actually talked about in our rhetorical speech class this year. But basically the first one is invention, like what to say, and that Annie chart is really going to help you with that. And then they will talk a little bit about arrangement. So they're going to take, 1 week they're going to focus on making an Annie chart, and it's, some pain and some complaining, and what are they asking me to do this for? And then the next week they're going to kind of look at taking the Annie chart and organizing it, sorting the different ones and categories and organizing it. And that's more of arrangement, the structure of content, and outlining it. So it's going to be Annie chart 1 week, Annie to outline the next week, and then even like thinking about elocution after that, like how do we say the things that we say? And so as we're writing that outline to essay, IEW has a lot of dress-ups and things that we've done as students, decorations, and there are some decorations in Lost Tools of Writing. We talk about similes and alliteration and metaphor, and so we'll work some of that into our writing. And so Annie 1 week, Annie is affirmative, negative, interesting, outline, and then writing the essay. And then they'll come into class and they'll get to use their delivery. It's memory and delivery. Now, I don't expect them to have memorized their essays. Ideally, you would. But there's not enough time and a lot going on. So they'll get to share their papers in class, and that's that delivery. And so it won't be talked about too much in the first year of Lost Tools of Writing, how they deliver it, but there is obviously presentation skills. And so the program is really good in teaching students how to think persuasively and to turn that into writing. But if you're coming off of a program where you had beautiful papers, you might be a little stressed. But as a parent who's gone through it, it will help your student learn how to think. And there are videos that you can watch if you're curious. The lessons will be taught in class. They'll be sent home to utilize those lessons with worksheets and then work them into their paper. It's very practical, very hands-on. But if you as a parent have more questions, there are videos that you can watch. That if you bought the teacher guide, it has a link and you can watch all of the videos. Your student only needs the student guide. The teacher guide is just if you feel like you need that to understand better to help your student at home. But the logic, I said logic 2 will be using the literature that they're reading along with a couple of free essays that they get to pick their should question. And the rhetoric level high school class is going to have current events that they're writing their Lost Tools on. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to your instructors or you can talk to me.